Good morning and welcome to World Report. Today we'll be looking at some of the most important events that occurred between 1986 and 1991. This 6 year time period was filled with political change, international conflicts, and major technological and economic developments, and the events that continue to shape our world today. We will cover both global and Canadian stories as if they were breaking news happening at the time. Expecting throughout this presentation. We began in 1986, where a catastrophic nuclear accident has struck Chernobyl power plant, just as the Iran-Contra affair rocks Washington. By 1987, constitutional debates ignite at home with the Meek Lake Accord, while overseas, the First Intifada begins and superpower tensions ease with the historic Inf Treaty. 1988 brings a high-stake Canadian federal election, leading into a monumental 1989. We are witnessing the Soviet withdrawal from Afghanistan, a brave stand in democracy for the Tiananmen Square, the historic signing of the Free Trade Agreement, and the unbelievable historic fall of the Berlin Wall. As a new decade dawns in 1990, German reunification is officially underway. However, domestic tensions reach a boiling point here at home as the Meek Lake Accord fails and the armed standoff of the Oka crisis grips the nation. Finally, in 1991, the world watches as the Gulf War begins, marking Canada's entry into the war. On the home front, consumers face the brand new GST, the Spicer Commission releases its stark report on unity, and we look north to history in the making with the major progress toward the creation of none of it. An unforgettable era of change. Stay with us for deeper coverage on these breaking stories. Reports confirm a catastrophic explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine. The blast occurred during a scheduled safety test, triggering an uncontrollable fire that has released massive amounts of radioactive material directly into the atmosphere. The immediate fallout is already contaminating local communities, and meteorological reports indicate that winds are rapidly spreading the toxic radiation across international borders and directly into deep Europe. On the ground, chaotic emergency operations are underway. Authorities are scrambling to secure the site, and thousands of nearby residents are urgently being evacuated from their homes in a desperate bid to escape the immediate danger. Looking ahead, the consequences of this disaster will be felt for generations. Medical experts are already warning of devastating long-term health risks from the exposure, while global analysts predict that this unprecedented crisis will permanently alter, a force, alter and force a massive upgrade of global nuclear safety standards forever. A major political scandal has emerged in the United States. Government investigations have revealed that the members of President Ronald Reagan's administration secretly sold weapons to Iran. The profits from these sales were then used to support the Contras, a rebel group fighting in Nicaragua. The controversy has sparked debates about presidential power, government accountability, and whether the officials acted outside the law. Turning now to major domestic news here in Canada, where Prime Minister Brian Mulroney has officially introduced a sweeping constitutional agreement known as the Meek Lake Accord. The primary goal of this historic accord is to finally win Quebec's formal support and the signature for the Canadian Constitution. To achieve this, the Prospel explicitly recognizes Quebec as the distinct society within Canada, while simultaneously granting all provinces significantly more power over federal appointments and constitutional vetoes. Pro- Proponents of the deal are praising the initiative, arguing that bringing Quebec into the constitutional fold is a vital step that could deeply strengthen Canadian national unity. However, the announcement is already facing intense pushback. Critics are fiercely arguing that the decentralization of power and the distinct society clause could lead to unequal treatment among the provinces, threatening the federal balance. With the constitutional battle lines being drawn across the country, this guarantees a massive multi-year debate that will test the very fabric of the nation. We turn now to a rapidly escalating crisis in the Middle East, where intense violence and mass protests are spreading rapidly throughout the West Bank and Gaza Strip. Palestinians have launched a widespread uprising, now called the First Intifada, to fiercely protest decades of Israel military control over these territories. The situation on the ground is deteriorating by the hour as the large scale demonstrations, coordinated commercial strikes, and violent confrontations with security forces have become an increasingly common daily reality. As the casualties mount, this escalating conflict is drawing urgent international attention and heavy media scrutiny. Global analysts warn that this uprising has fundamentally altered the status quo and is fully expected to heavily influence all future regional peace discussions and geopolitical future of the region. In a major Cold War development, the United States and the Soviet Union have signed the Intermediate Range Nuclear Force Treaty. The agreement requires both nations to eliminate thousands of nuclear missiles capable of striking targets across Europe. Many world leaders are celebrating the treaty as a significant step towards reducing the threat of nuclear war and improving relations between the two superpowers. Canadians have gone to the polls in what many are calling one of the most important elections in recent history. The central issue is a free trade with the United States. Prime Minister Brian Mulroney argues that the agreement will strengthen Canada's economy and create new opportunities for business. After a highly competitive campaign, Mulroney's Progressive Conservatives have secured another majority government, allowing the free trade agreement to move forward. Now, let's send it to our news anchor, Maheen, for more major developments from 1989 and 1990.
Thank you. After nearly 10 years of conflict, Soviet forces have officially withdrawn from Afghanistan. The war has cost thousands of lives and placed tremendous pressure on the Soviet economy. Many observers see the withdrawal as a sign that the Soviet Union is weakening both politically and economically. Historians may look back on its moment as one of the events that accelerated the end of the Cold War. Thousands of students and citizens have gathered in Beijing's Tiananmen Square, demanding political reforms and greater freedoms. The demonstrations have attracted worldwide attention and become one of the largest protest movements in modern Chinese history. The events have sparked international discussions about democracy, human rights, and government authority. We have historic news from Germany. Crowds are celebrating as the Berlin Wall, which has divided East and West Berlin since 1961, has opened. Families separated for decades are reuniting, and many see the event as a symbol of freedom and the decline of communist governments throughout Eastern Europe. Experts are already calling this one of the most important moments in the 20th century. The Canada-United States Free Trade Agreement has officially taken effect. The agreement removes many trade barriers between the two countries and is expected to increase business activity and economic growth. Supporters believe the deal will strengthen Canada's economy, while opponents worry that it can make Canada too dependent on the American market. Less than a year after the fall of the Berlin Wall, East Germany and West Germany have officially reunited. The reunification ends decades of division that began after the World War II and creates a single German nation once again. Many people view this as another clear sign that the Cold War is coming to an end. A major conflict has emerged in Quebec. Members of the Mohawk community are protesting plans to expand a golf course onto the land they consider sacred. The dispute has escalated into a lengthy standoff, including police, military, and indigenous protesters. The Oka crisis has brought national attention to indigenous land rights and the relationship between indigenous peoples and the Canadian government. And now we turn to Anchor 3 for the final events of our timeline.
Thank you. After years of debate, the Mechalike Accord has officially failed. The agreement did not receive approval from all provinces before the deadline, meaning it cannot become law. Its collapse has increased political tension across Canada and has raised new questions about national unity and Quebec's place within the country. War begins. Gulf War begins. International attention is focused on the Persian Gulf after Iraq invaded Kuwait. In response, a coalition of countries led by the United States has launched military operation aimed at forcing Iraqi troops to withdraw. The conflict has become one of the largest international military actions since World War II and is being closely watched by everyone around the world. Canada joins the Gulf War. Canada has joined coalition efforts in Gulf War. Canadian naval vessels, aircraft, and military personnel have been deployed to support the mission. Government officials say Canada's participation demonstrates the commitment to its international security and cooperation with allied nations. GST introduced 1991. Canadians are adjusting to a major change in the country's tax system. The federal government has introduced goods and services tax, commonly known as GST. Although supporters argue it will improve government finances, many Canadians have criticized the new tax and expressed concerns about rising costs. Commission Report 1991. Following concerns about national unity, the federal government created a special commission to gather opinions from Canadians all across the country. The Commission has heard from thousands of citizens and identified concerns about constitutional reform, regional differences, and the future direction of Canada. Its findings are expected to influence future political discussions. Progress toward Nunavut, 1991. Our final story focuses on northern Canada. Negotiations between Inuit leaders and the federal government continues to make progress toward creating a new territory that would eventually become Nunavut. The discussion represents an important step toward greater Indigenous self-government and recognition of Inuit rights in Canada. In conclusion, between 1986 and 1991, the world experienced dramatic change. The Cold War began to come to an end, Germany reunited, major political movements emerged, and conflicts reshaped the international relations. In Canada, debates over national unity, Indigenous rights, trade, tax influenced the country's future. These events helped shape the modern world and continue to affect our lives daily. Thank you for watching World Report from 1986 to 1991.